welcome back to another segment of Burnt Coverage. I'm your host, Joel.
And I'm Curtis.
And this segment we're going to cover running backs. What do you say, Curtis? You got any good values?
Nope. All terrible picks on my side because I'm not the running back guru. You are,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So why even listen to my segment?
Absolutely true. I'm glad you're on camera saying it. I know it, they know it, and now you know it.
But what the hell? I'll throw out a few anyway and see if anything sticks to the wall. I'm gonna go, off the cusp here. I'm just gonna take Arian Foster. Yeah.
Dig deep.
Dig deep. I'm going really deep here.
It's a strong value play. I mean, Arian Foster's Arian Foster, but hey.
I heard it from an old friend of mine once that sometimes the best play is the most obvious one, and that's what I'm going with Arian Foster here.
That is sage advice.
He's 7,000 in DraftKings, 8,500 in FanDuel. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's a lot of money for Arian Foster. He's playing Jacksonville. Yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who we all know and love because they are great when you're playing against them in fantasy. Arian Foster is the consummate dual threat. He had 9 catches last week, he had 19 carries last week, and that's coming off of his injury. The last week was really the first game that we saw a full complement of Arian Foster, and he could blow up because at the end of this game it might be a huge Texans win. They're still in their division race. Even though they lost to the Colts last week, the Colts are going to be playing the Patriots this week. The Texans are playing the Jaguars, so this is a chance for them to catch up. And if they do get up big, I picked Brian Hoyer as a quarterback. That means more Arian Foster, especially with Alfred Blue possibly questionable. Well, he's certainly questionable, but possibly out with a turf toe injury. Arian Foster could be running it deep into this game. Everybody knows about Arian Foster, how great he is. But we could see something that we haven't seen in quite a while. We could see that elusive 100 yards receiving, 100 yards rushing out of Arian Foster, which is just gold in fantasy. And
in real football too.
He certainly has the tools. He did have one or two carries last week where it looked like he didn't quite have the burst. I expect him to be a little better this week. He's been in the limited category, which is what you do for any great player during the week practicing. He's been limited in practice. That just means they're conserving him for the game. And with no true backup, they've been trying to mix in Polk and Blue. I don't think that's going to happen this week. Look for close to 30 touches from your star Arian Foster against a very suspect Jaguars defense.
Yeah, I mean, I love Arian Foster, and I was paying I watched this game very closely last week because I wanted to watch Arian Foster because I've been waiting for him. I've been anticipating his debut this year.
He has them in our
season long.
Yeah.
Yes, he was very sluggish in the beginning, very hesitant. But as the game progressed, you could see that old Arian Foster burst, and it reaffirmed to me that he is good to go. He just had to shake off a little rust, get the game flow, get the crowd into it. It's a really, really good play. It's an expensive play, but sometimes the expensive plays are worth the price.
And we talked off camera too. I mean, you talked about the hesitant. Arian Foster runs a lot like Le'Veon Bell. If you watch the Monday night game or you've seen Le'Veon Bell run, they wait for the holes.
Yeah.
And they're not just plowing ahead and trying to get 5 yards. They're trying to get 40 yards on a run. And you'll see them behind the line. They'll kind of sit there and wait for it. The problem with Arian Foster is that he's coming back from injury, so he doesn't necessarily have the burst once he finds the hole to get there. But with an extra week, we saw him productive, no setbacks. Against a not-so-great defense, this could be a huge Arian Foster week.
Yes, and I think that Alfred Blue is not only questionable to play, I think he's a questionable football player.
Yeah, I agree. As someone who has rostered Alfred Blue when Arian Foster was out, that he's questionable. He has good games against terrible defenses.
And terrible games against good defenses.
Yeah, so there's that on Alfred Blue. Don't play Alfred Blue this week. Burnt Coverage exclusive.
Heard it here.
Joel, you got somebody?
I do. Who do I want to start with? Let's start
Mezcal
with
break.
mezcal. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Eddie Lacy, Green Bay Packers. So they're playing the San Diego Chargers. The way to beat San Diego, that is what San Diego has shown us. The way to beat them is running the ball. I understand Eddie Lacy is tied to a surefire Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers likes to throw the ball, as most great quarterbacks do. However, what does Aaron Rodgers like to do more than throw the ball? He likes to win. And the way to beat San Diego, I think and Eddie Lacy has been disappointing to say the least this season. It's a very slow start, but he's still averaging 4.1 a carry. And San Diego is giving up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs this season. Vegas has set the over-under at this game of 50. Also, a lot of points means fantasy goodness. Green Bay is 11.5-point favorites, which means Vegas is anticipating them being up early. And what happens when teams go up early? They run the ball a lot. So I think Eddie Lacy's problems this year have been his just lack of carries. I don't think he's had more than 15 carries this season in any single game. I think he's going to demolish that. I think it's an easy 20-25 touch game. And if you give Eddie Lacy the momentum and the continuity of game flow with 25 touches, he's shown it in the past, and I think this week he really comes up big. He's going for the price of $6,300 on DraftKings and $7,300 on FanDuel. And I think that it's a really strong play because I don't think a lot of people will be playing him this week because he's had 2 really bad games in a row. Which is a reason for his low price, but I think this is really an easy payday for Eddie Lacy buyers this week.
This is a guy that both of us came in and liked and were willing to talk about. And Joel covered most of my things. I just want to say, the Chargers aren't good against the run. They're actually 30th in the league against running backs and yards allowed, and the whole ball control thing. So if you consider yourself a contender, that obviously the Packers do consider themselves a contender, you want all aspects of your game clicking. And if you think your running game isn't clicking, you want a game to get your running backs clicking. So even if it doesn't happen for Lacy right at the outset, which I think it could, but even if it doesn't, it could be a game where they're up and they really want Lacy to get the ball. And so I don't think the 20 touches is out of the realm of possibility at all. And it would actually behoove the Packers to get Eddie Lacy going, because you certainly don't want to have a split. I like James Starks. I think he's a quality guy, but you don't want to have a 50-50 split with a guy like James Starks.
No.
He's more of a guy to relieve or spell. Eddie Lacy has shown the talent. I'm not going to give up on him yet. And there's this whole idea of when somebody says, I have Eddie Lacy, like, oh, he's terrible, he hasn't done anything this year. And I think that's in like a season-long league, but I think in a daily and weekly league too, like people just kind of gloss over his name, like, oh, he hasn't done anything.
Because he hasn't had a good week in a while, so yeah, he's like a big name that people overlook. But that's where you find the value, because he's that contrarian play that no one else is going to be playing.
Yeah,
or very few people are going to be playing.
Yeah.
He's going to be that under 10% play.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's exactly what I was going to say. He could be under a double digit, like a 8 to 9% play.
Yeah, and that's where you make the money.
So yeah, worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's going to be I'm going to go on record, I think it's going to be a like Garrett Blunt style game.
And what is the LeGarrette Blunt style game?
Multiple touchdowns.
So Packers are going to be way up, and then they're going to run it out with Lacy.
Yes.
Okay.
Multiple touchdowns. 2 touchdowns for Eddie Lacy this week.
Wow. That's doing something. Okay.
Running back guy.
I'm not going to argue against it, but if I was,
You can't.
No,
You can't.
I can. Kuhn, Richard Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers throws the ball. They trust him, but I like Eddie Lacy. I don't want to deter that. But anyway. You can deter my pick because I know you will.
I will. I don't even know who you're saying.
Yeah, you do. All right. Well, I'm saying Chris Ivory.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
I'll let you start.
Thank you. Chris Ivory. They forgot about Chris. Here we are. Chris Ivory just made his career mark in rushing the last time he played, which was 2 weeks ago. And I guess people forgot that because another week of football happened. But people have buys. And sometimes when you're injured and you play and you break your own rushing record, and then you have a bye, you might come back and be even better. And that's where I'm hoping Chris Ivory is. Well, he had 29 carries the last time he played. That's not going to happen. And if it does, well, then you should certainly play him. But I think 20 carries certainly is out of the question. For 5,100 in DraftKings and 7,300 in FanDuel, he's a very valuable play. He's gonna get all the touches. Bilal Powell has been almost phased out of this offense. So if you're worried about that, Washington is actually heralded as a good defense. And if you're playing DraftKings, you'll see this red third against the run. That's going to scare some people away, but that's good for you. Because Washington actually averages 4 yards a carry against the run. And Ivory himself is averaging 5 yards a carry. So, let's meet in the middle. Let's say he gets 4.6, 4.7 yards a carry. That's pretty good. He's the workhorse, coming off a bye, fully healthy, and just a healthy, rested, bruising running back like Ivory. I think he's going to do really well. He's 14th in the league in rushing yards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, he's had his bye, and a lot of teams haven't. So I really look for Ivory this week in a game against the terrible Washington Redskins, who, they've won some games, granted, but what are the games they've won? They've won against a very injured Atlanta team, and they beat the Eagles on Kirk Cousins' best day as a quarterback
ever.
Yeah. So I really see Ivory getting in a position. Fitzpatrick's been moving the ball with Brandon Marshall and Decker. I see Ivory getting very nice touches and a lot of them to put his price at a very great play for you in fantasy.
I mean, I understand the argument. I just don't agree with it. It's easy to have a career game when your career has not been very good.
Whoa, wait. Ivory hasn't. Ivory for the Saints years didn't get a lot of opportunities because he had Breeze throwing the ball, and then they split time with Chris Johnson and him before in the Jets. This is the first year he's really had a chance to shine, and he has.
If it's the first year he's had a chance to shine, why is that?
I just told you.
3 head coaches have said what? You're not a good running back. I'm not going to trust my offense with you.
That's not
true.
Yes,
that's
all.
Exactly what happens. And the way to beat Washington is to throw the ball. That's been proven through the first month and a half of the season. The secondary of Washington is very banged up, and you have 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers on the Jets. And I'm not by any means touting the offense of the New York Jets with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback, but you've got Brandon Marshall.
Kind of sounds like you are.
I'm not at all. I'm just telling you how terrible of a running back Chris Ivory is. Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker are 2 great receivers. Both have been banged up in their careers. Brandon Marshall's having a career year this year. Eric Decker's had a little more of the injury bug. But no, I'm not. There's no.
So I have a question, Coach.
Hey.
If you're so worried about the receiving core for a team, wouldn't you devote most of your assets to covering said receivers, which would open up said running game?
But if your secondary is said terrible, it doesn't matter if you focus on stopping the receiving game, because they've tried to focus on stopping the receiving game. They're just not good at doing it.
Even if you don't think that Chris Ivory is going to have another career week, which is unlikely, I'll admit, he is cheap. 5,100 for a workhorse back, a guy that's almost guaranteed to get 20 carries.
Almost guaranteed to get 20 carries in a game that could potentially be 13-10.
Yeah, well, that's perfect for him. 13-10 is a running game if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, but it's a running game where it's 14 carries for 36 yards.
He's going to get more than 14 carries.
I'd put money on that.
All right, well, here's our on-camera.
bet of the week.
Let's do it. Let's do it over under. I'll give you 15 over under, and you'll take the under, and I'll take the over.
I'll take that.
On Ivory.
Yes, I'll bet Chris Ivory has under 15.
Barring injury. Barring injury. Give me a bar injury.
Okay, that's fine.
Bar injury.
What's the bet? For entertainment value?
Yeah, for entertainment value. For bragging rights.
Bets.
Yeah.
I already have bragging rights. I don't need any more.
Well, the real money bets when I play Ivory a lot and you don't, and then I win a bunch of money and you don't.
Text me and curse Chris Ivory come Monday.
No, come Monday it'll be all right.
Come Monday.
Was I last? Is that it?
Nope.
Damn.
That is not it. I've got one more. So I'm going to go with the real workhorse running back of the league this year. I'm going to go Matt Forte. Chicago Bears. They're in Detroit this week. It's a divisional game. So Detroit is allowing 127 rushing yards a game. Matt Forte is on a career pace for touches, and he is at that 30-year-old mark where historically all running backs break down, but I think they are giving him the DeMarco Murray treatment this year. I think they're going to run him into the ground and then just let him walk next year. So Forte is averaging 4 catches a game. He's had over 100 total yards the last 2 games and at least 20 attempts in 3 out of the last 5. And Detroit is not a good team, and Chicago's not a good team, but Matt Forte is a very good running back. And he's going for the prices of $7,100 on DraftKings, $8,400 on FanDuel. He is pricey, but he's one of these running backs that you'll hear me say he's pricey for a reason, because he will pay off. Because the receiving core of Chicago is still suspect and banged up. Alshon Jeffrey is coming back into his health, but Marquise Wilson having a career game last week. Marquise Wilson does not scare me. Matt Forte scares me if I were Detroit. Matt Forte this week against the Lions.
Yeah, I like Forte. I can't argue against him. The Detroit's 27th against the rush.
127 rushing yards a game.
And it's one of these weird scenarios where Alshon's back or not, and it doesn't really matter. I could argue either way. Like, he's not back, Forte's going to get more. He is back, it's going to open him up.
And he's very similar to that Arian Foster play, because he can do it all. Like, he catches balls at his when Forte's at his best. He's catching balls out of the backfield, and then he's also rushing it right up the middle.
Yeah, and with the sad injury to Jamal Charles, we're running out of that quintessential fantasy running back who is great at running and receiving. We saw Foster barely, but Forte is certainly that guy.
And the true 3-down back, that's becoming a very big rarity in the NFL these days.
Yeah. I certainly like him. And really the reason I like him is because how does Detroit recover from this game? If you really want to go out on a limb in fantasy this week, you're gonna pick a lot of Detroit players because they're playing a suspect Bears defense, and hope that at home they can find some semblance of the team they were supposed to be. But after your star player, I hate to say loses the game, but doesn't control the ball at the goal line, which happens to lose you the game. Forget about it getting knocked out of the end zone and that whole thing. But Calvin Johnson would have held on to it. They would have been down with the 1. Stafford could have dove in. Who knows? It could have been a season changer for him. I just feel like Detroit's over it at this point.
Absolutely. They're already making plans for the offseason.
Yeah, and it's a division game, and the Bears won their first game last week. Maybe feel like they have new life. It's false hope, but maybe feel like they still have a shot. I don't think so, but if you're John Fox,
stranger things have happened.
Yeah, if you're John Fox and you're I think he's a great coach. And you have veteran leadership on your team, Cutler, Martellus Bennett, Alshon if he's back. Like you have a lot of pride on the line coming off a win. I see Forte having a big game.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this segment of Burn Coverage. I'm Curtis.
And I'm Joel.
And check out our other segments this week and every week. And I hope to see you next time.
On the couch.
Bye.